Tuning in with KrASIA, bringing human stories to life. Welcome to another episode of Tuning In by KrASIA. I'm Emily Fang, your host for this episode. Winnie Khoo is a local partner for Antler in Singapore who works with and coaches teams. She's a seasoned leader in tech in China and Southeast Asia and an entrepreneur herself. Winnie has a unique perspective on the ecosystem, working closely with founders and growth marketing. So Winnie, I heard you have a Ford Mustang. These are really hard to find in Singapore. Do you think it's representative of your character as well, like your personality?
A little bit, right? I can be very unconventional. Mm-hmm. So in the way I deal with things, deal with the teams, and the way I work, right? Mm-hmm. I'm usually very candid. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid to say, what I really think about stuff, right? And I'm not very feminine.
That's okay. I'm not really either. And I don't think there's an issue with it at all. It's just the way that, we present ourselves. In terms of your personal life, right? Mm-hmm. We know that, you're a single mom. Is there a stigma right now in Singapore or in Asia about being a single mom, but also being a very driven career woman? Because I know that you are a partner at Antler. Just looking at your track record, you worked at Carousell and PropertyGuru, you've done so much. Mm-hmm. How do you balance all of that?
Well, this is a question you get all the time, right? When you are in female panels talking about diversity to a room of females. But it is the same as how a single dad would do it, right? There's no difference to that. And usually kids are very resilient. Mm-hmm. So it is about the quality of the time, not the quantity. You can be at home 24/7 and still be disengaged. Yeah. Or you can spend really quality weekends with your kid and be really engaged with them. I think that the part about balancing and all that is usually on one side, right? It's usually the parent side having this guilt mentality. Yeah. I'm not spending enough time with my kid, I'm working too hard and all that. Mm-hmm. But there is also a good trade-off with that because, when you have a good career, you have a comfortable life and your kid enjoy the perks of it. Mm-hmm. You also have a lot of perspective to life and all that you can, the experiences that you do when you work hard and all that, the values that you have can be passed on to the kid. The question goes how do you balance it? Yeah. It depends on what is the definition of balance. Mm-hmm. Whether it is very quantifiable in terms of X number of time equal X number of time at home and all that, or in terms of quality.
Yeah. And maybe I can rephrase that question then or reframe it better. So how do you ensure that you are maintaining and ensuring a good relationship with your kid while being really good at your job and also taking care of yourself?
Yeah. So with my kid, right, I'm probably not taking care of myself very well.
You should.
I don't really think of my kid as a kid, right? Well, she's already 16 years old.
Oh, okay.
But I really think of her even when she was growing up, I never spoke to her like a kid. She's company for me, I'm company for her. Yeah. And we are friends more than anything else. So we can talk about anything under the sun. We talk about deep topics and all that. And I really don't think that it takes any effort at all for me to maintain that relationship because the time we spend together, right? Mm-hmm. We have mutual hobbies. We like building Legos together. Mm-hmm. Both of us are introverts, so we like staying at home and doing a lot of talking. So it really depends, when it's only me and her during the weekends, the quality of the time goes up a lot. Yeah. So I've never deliberately considered, can I be an even better parent or can I spend even more time? Can I do less work and all that, right? Yeah. It's never really crossed my mind because I really enjoyed the relationship we have together and vice versa, right?
I think that's great. Mm-hmm. I think that style of parenting is also quite nice. You treat your kid like an adult and you put them on almost the same level and you teach them the things that you would want her to learn. So that's great.
At the same time, learning from her, right? What do kids think about these days? What do they talk about at school? What is she worried about? What she's stressed about? What does she think about her future, the world, the macro environment, the environment, and all that, right?
Yeah, kids are getting smarter and smarter. I don't know if it's technology or the access to information.
I don't know, right? It's very different for kids my age, right? I think you're closer to my kids' age. They're very intuitive. Yeah. And curious. Mm-hmm. So they are also they're not stupid like kids our age, right? There's, it's only, the Maslow theory, right? These young people, they're already at the top. Makes them happy and stuff like that. Yeah. Their values and
to hop on that question as well, or to what you just said, what in your life right now is most important, right? I think with maturity, these priorities or things changed so much. For me, like when I was younger, I was like, oh, grades are important. And then now it's like my career is important. And then now I'm like, I need to work on my career and maybe find a life partner and then maybe a dog, right? Like, so I guess like to you, what is most important in your life right now?
I think like, when I was younger, right, it's all about working really, really hard and getting ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed what I'm doing. I worked for 23 years. I spent the last 15 in tech companies, right?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of doing, not a lot of thinking. And then you really enjoy what you do every day, right? I'm not one up. I spent 15 years. But I guess the main difference now is that you have choices. You can take out what you really like to do and then exchange it with parts that you don't, right? So it's a sense of empowerment that you have when you get older, that, you can choose to spend your time where you feel is more meaningful.
Yeah.
And you can choose the pace that you want also. Right now in my point, I'm not thinking I want to conquer the world again. I want to build the next unicorn and all that, although hopefully that may come also. But it's more about the impact that you're landing. What am I doing on a daily basis? First of all, self, right? What makes me happy? Am I using my brains? Am I still learning? And is the work still making me curious? And then on the other side, right, you see others on the companies. And that is great when you get feedback, when you know that whatever changes or whatever network that you offer, right, is a shortcut into the otherwise very long journey. Yeah. So it's weird that, when you are younger, you have more plans.
Yeah.
So you plan ahead. And as I grew older, right, it's more about the moment.
The moment. Okay.
So at this present moment, am I enjoying all 9-10 hours I spend at work? And I enjoying the rest of the time I spend at home? And yeah, you don't really have to account to anybody, right, which is great.
Yeah. It seems like you're being more intentional too with your time. I think before it's more like execution and doing things like that. Yeah. So now that you work very closely with the portfolio companies at Antler, and I think we tend to see them as companies and maybe but it's also like you're investing in these companies, but also in the people. So like with all the, wisdom you've acquired over the years, what wisdom are you pouring into them? Like regardless if they make it or, they fail, like what do you hope to kind of impart to them after the Antler program?
I guess with the founders, right, that we have in the Antler program, it's more about the individuals than the companies. When they are in the program, most of them, if not all, are really very talented. They already fulfill a certain criteria that we have when we bring them into the program. I guess there's a few important things that makes them successful or not, right? Yeah. The first thing is the unlearning first. So put whatever that you have learned before at the door of Antler, right? Yeah. So be it if you guys spend like 15 years in the bank, 14 years and whatever, right? Yeah. You need to be super open-minded because you're working with 70 to 100 other talented founders. So one of the biggest value that anybody will get from the program is starting a business at the same time with these like-minded people, entrepreneurs. And with the diversity that we have, they're going to learn a lot, right? They wouldn't be able to do it if they don't unlearn some stuff, right? They don't think that my way is the correct way. There's like 101 ways out there, right? Yeah. And then the next critical point is helping them ideate how do you get to an idea or build something, right, that will interest you in the next 5 to 7 years, right? It's this self-awareness of why you're doing what you're doing. All the whys are fine. Like some people's whys, like I want to have freedom of my ownership, probably I want to build something on my own. I don't care what is it, I just want to build. Okay? Some people could be like, I'm very, very, very passionate about something and I really want to make a difference there. Some people could be like, I have this domain knowledge, so I know this area very well. So if I build anything here, I'll be good at it. So it's to, first of all, make them have the self-awareness of where they should build in, which space. And if they were to choose a space, what's their spot in the space, what role do they play? Because it's all very well and say that, okay, for me, I can look across the room and say, the company, there's a lot of potential in this company, VCs, the space is very hot and all that, right? But you never really go far because you don't fit into any of these buckets, right? Like, it's not a space that you're passionate about, it's not somewhere that you have domain knowledge about, and you're just taking it out for opportunistic reasons.
No, that makes so much sense. I actually know a lot of people who have gone through the Antler program as well. Yeah, a lot of the things that I've also heard is just, there's a lot of unlearning to do. Because when you go into like entrepreneurship and, you're doing your own startup, like there's so many things that you realize you're like, wow, I actually don't know. And you're just learning. Yeah, like relearning.
Yeah. And it's also very easy for, like I've done a startup on my own, right? Okay. It's very to when you look from the outside in, right? You think, oh, this is so logical. Why don't you know it and all that? It is a very different experience when you're inside out, when you're building the company yourself, and then you care so much about it and all that, right? So the view that you have is very different. So I think one of the biggest value that the Antler coaches bring to the company is like this outside in view. To say that, hey, I know that you're very passionate about this, but nobody will die if you don't do this thing for the next 3 months. But if you don't do the other one, stuff like that, right?
Wow, that's interesting because my sister said the same thing too. Like, I remember when I used to freak out about things and she's like, but did someone die? No, then keep going. I was like, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, I have another question for you in regards to that about human emotion in entrepreneurship. So I think for you, when you're, coaching and like mentoring these startups, how do you separate your emotion and I guess your coaching to these people, because you develop a relationship with them and you see them go through these like hardships? How do you ensure that, you're giving them like the best advice possible without being emotionally involved in their work?
Okay. So first of all, I think that you should be emotionally involved in your coaching.
Okay.
So you should care for the founders. You should have a lot of empathy, because without empathy, right, there's no way that you're going to help them very much, right? Because you're not be able to feel the hardships they're going through and understand that, and you'll be giving them very surface advice, right? Oh, you should do this, do this, they'll not understand it, right? So empathy is very important. I guess I separate my coaching into two kinds: the functional work, surgical kind of advice. So, like for example, you need to focus on getting your CAC down. There's just other ways of reaching out to the market. Your solution doesn't really solve the problem, even if 100% of the users use it. Like things like that is very, very surgical and tangible. And then the other big part of coaching is all about rallying them on. It is, this encouragement, this positive affirmation when they're onto something, so that they feel that they're onto something, right? Like the hardship of a founder, it's a few falls, right? They'll be thinking, like most of the time, they'll be thinking, like, okay, what the hell have I done? Like, is this really going to be a business? Am I on the right track? And they question themselves almost every day, right? This is almost all good founders will do this. They'll question themselves, they will think, and sometimes overthink stuff, right? So emotional support, the validation from external is very important. Almost as important as the tactical stuff, the very strategic, clinical, what do you do to make this business grow? How do you get to your product market fit and all that? How do you build your MVP and all that, right? All these are very skills-based and knowledge-based coaching.
Okay. In terms of coaching too, I guess what would you say is like the most important value when it comes to coaching as well? Like how you approach an issue? Like, is there like a procedure and like how to effectively coach in that sense?
Okay, so in the Antler program, the way I coach, right, is very dependent on the stage.
Okay.
So right at the very beginning, right, where you probably have a team or you have people that you like to work with, but you have no idea, right? How I try to frame it is we always start with the problem. So we will go at it for many, many sessions until we get the problem correct. So when we talk about problems, like, can the founders maybe in one sentence articulate the problem that they're trying to solve? Is that problem a real problem? Is a real problem, is it a painful problem? And then if it's a painful problem, is it a painful problem faced by many, right? So we will go down this questioning thing until we got all the checkbox. Yes, this is a big problem. And so we're not even talking about the solution yet, right? We will not say how we solve this problem. Like, this is the space we're going to play with. And then I will go on to who are you solving the problem for, right? I describe the exact person down to the fact where do you think he's wearing a t-shirt or a shirt? Do you think she is wearing heels or like flip-flops? Or how much do you think she earns a month? How much does she spend on lunch? Stuff like this, right? So that you will know exactly who the person is. Then we move on to the solution. And what can we build to help this person solve that problem, right? So it's very structured, but at the same time, it's very open-ended. At this stage, right, rather than coaching, you are facilitating the process. You're trying to let them jump outside the box. Because most founders have this propensity to start with a solution. So I want to build this. And then they reverse engineer to find a problem. So when they do that, right, sometimes it doesn't connect.
I guess it's like coaching. It's like you're asking the accurate, right questions for them to get to the answers themselves in that sense.
And then when you move on, when there is actually, they call a solution and all that, right? Then what I would do is try to identify the gaps in the team. Because nobody can be good at everything, right? So there will most certainly be gaps. There will be gaps where maybe this team is bigger in marketing, or this team is bigger in product, or this team is not creative enough for this business and all that, right? So For the subject matter that I can coach, I will. If I cannot, I will definitely connect them with people I know in the ecosystem that is very good at a particular thing. So that solves a lot. Rather than like they spend months and months trying to figure out something they're not good at. But have somebody like give them advice on if it was them doing this business, how would it look like and all that.
Gotcha.
So that helps. Then subsequently, like, when we get the main framework, the strategy, the solution mainly done, then we need to get your business running as fast as possible already. And then the coaching become less structured. Definitely we have to set some milestones, right? These are milestones, short milestones, right? Every 3 months, like, this is what we want to achieve. And we need to, measure that in depth, like, very carefully. And then once we are measuring that, we know where we are lacking and we know where we are good at. And then we will adjust it and refine it some more. At this time, right, the team will come back to me with like roadblocks, like, okay, I've done this, this is the work, what else can we do? Or they'll say that, okay, this direction overall as a strategy doesn't work, can we rethink the whole thing? So every session, I will ask, do you want out of it? Before the session, right? Like, okay, at the end of this hour, right, we must have done something, like, see if it's like we're working on the business. This Antler is not a school, right? It's ultimately a VC that generates company to invest in. So we are helping the teams, the founders build a business. We're not like really teaching them. It's not education. It's whatever, right? Getting down to their business and really seeing what's needed.
Yeah, I feel like coaching, it changes all the time, right? It's like case by case scenario. So I'm like, wow, like I feel like you must know a lot of things before going into coaching. So
but I guess one of the most important quality also that I have to improve on all the time, right, is that you also have to recognize the fact that there is learning ground for you with every team. So the listening aspect is very, very important, right? Like sometimes founders are telling you something, but they actually meant another thing, or they are like uncomfortable about another thing. Or they are telling you that, okay, maybe the solution that you suggested will not work, right? And this is why and why and why and why. And it's not like, coach versus mentor-mentee thing, right? It works the other way around too.
No, that's great. So for my last question, what would you say is like the best parts and the worst parts of your job?
I guess the best part of my job is definitely time spent with the founders, because for them, right, it's probably one of the biggest decision that they have made in their life, the biggest journey that they embark on in their life, right? And it's definitely a privilege and an honor that you get to at least walk the beginning few months with them and see how they start on this road. And whether they succeed or not, right, the experience itself is invaluable. The process is amazing too, right? I guess the worst part of it, let's see, the worst part of it can also, in a way, be part of the best part, right? So it is like I've spent like last 15 years building tech companies, right? And now you feel like, you have to be very deliberate and not go in and do it for anybody, right? You have to teach the fear. So I guess sometimes, you get itchy fingers, right? You don't want to play in the playground. You come over and you go back to the battlefield and all, like this is playground, right? But it's actually not very bad also.
Okay, good answer. I mean, that makes sense, right?
So one part of it is that I don't get to travel, it's COVID.
Oh, yeah. But I think when things open up, though, you can travel to different Antler offices, and then you'll probably be doing that. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your input and your thoughts and your opinions. I feel like it's very, very valuable, and really glad I was able to catch you. Thank you so much for your time. Bye, Winnie.
Bye.